That is how I would prefer to hear it. They like a wireless thing, but it doesn't work as soon as you hit a video.
Good morning. Welcome to Board of Commissioners, Franklin County, Washington. The date is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. Call the meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adoption of current agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to amend the agenda, please. I'd like item number 2 on regular business to be moved to a workshop next week, please.
Is Mr. Bratton here today? So
Yeah, he's here.
is
I have a lot of questions on it myself, and I would like to, especially on past history before you were here, and these bonds and where we're at. I've read through it, and there's a lot of questions I got.
Yeah, just
Is that on?
am I on? Okay. Just understand that this document is not a, how to explain this? This is primarily a tracking document. Everything in there is just what it is up to this point. In the future, it'll be a little different. We've never had a CIP. So what this version that you have before you is, and I have no issues or concerns about doing a workshop on it. That's perfectly fine. Just for clarification, the CIP is connected to the capital facilities element of the comprehensive plan, but it's a little bit more than that. In the comprehensive plan, the CFP, the capital facilities plan, only provides those capital expenses directly connected to levels of service, things like roads and stuff like that. We don't do water and sewer, so that's not even in our bailiwick. What the CIP is a,
Mr. Chairman, we're at the agenda. This is the place for this.
okay, that's fine.
that all right to move to next week?
Yeah.
All consensus?
Yeah,
All
not a
right.
problem.
And then, Mr. Chairman, I'd like both items on the consent agenda to move to regular business so we can have discussion on them.
Okay. So
With that, I would make a motion to accept the agenda as presented with 2 adjustments. That's that the 2 consent agenda items be moved to regular business, and that item number 2 currently on the regular business be moved to a later workshop.
I second.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Approval of minutes, May 15th, 2024. Is there any additions or corrections?
No.
Good with me.
Are these mics on? I can hardly hear.
Pretty low volume. Yeah, they sound pretty low volume for some reason.
Testing.
Testing 1, 2.
That one's, I can't hear this one, though. And I can't hear Rocky's.
All right. Approval of warrant registers and payroll rosters.
Mr. Chairman, we have one voucher this morning. I move to approve funded expenditures in the amount of $615,452.77 and note that it has been reviewed by 2 members of the auditor's office and signed by the county administrator.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Moving on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, LaWanda Hatch from Franklin County. I just wanted to first thank you, Commissioner Mullen and Commissioner Didier. I know you're getting a lot of heat in the Herald, but we have kind of a joke about the Herald. If you get bad press, we know you're doing a good job. If you get good press, you may be a problem for us. I wanted just to speak about something that happened last week. Our party created a process that will make it impossible for us to endorse President Trump. It includes a questionnaire that was illegally passed, according to our party laws. After I left to my car, because I was not happy to look for my bylaws, as well as looking up Robert's Rules of Order, evidently they had a discussion. So what was it that this questionnaire was? It was for all the candidates. And it was actually one that I wanted to have for candidates that have never run before. But obviously, it's a questionnaire that would be redundant for the president to fill out, nor possible. So when I left, evidently they had a discussion that it would be fine if I illegally filled it out and signed it, even though it's in the first person, which I cannot do, and the Trump campaign will not allow me to do. So I don't want to get sued. So obviously, I made a post that makes it impossible for us to endorse President Trump as our party. And why do I bring this here? Because Mr. Baumann is the chairman, and he was part of that corrupt process. So now Mr. Baumann and company want to censure me, a PCO who represents my precinct to the party. I do not represent Mr. Baumann or the executive board to my voters. So let's look at those who are wanting to censure me. First, there is our county assessor and his assistant that came to our party and promised that they would stop the rapid inflation of our property values, making our taxes go up to an unaffordable amount for so many citizens in our county. And not only that, have they not kept that promise, they have made it worse. And when people have gone to the Board of Equalization, appealed and won, now that same assessor is appealing to the state. I have more. I will come back with the rest.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Good morning. Please state your name, and you have 3 minutes.
Good
Thank you.
morning, David Gehrig. My wife and I have lived in Pasco for 12 years, and when I received the property tax value increase for my property in West Pasco, I was a little appalled at the amount, so I appealed to the assessor, and I've mentioned that to Steve, I mentioned that to you, and I also mentioned that to Clint. So during the appeal process, my appeal was denied mainly because I am not a mass appraisal person, and that's the only software that's used to come up with the values. So my assessment of value was using similar to what a professional appraiser would do, and it was completely denied. So I went to the Board of Equalization on the same grounds. It was denied because the county is accurate, and myself, I'm not accurate in the way that I come up with an appraisal, even though I have 12 years of construction experience and have remodeled many homes. So at the denial, my only recourse was to go to the state tax board, and so I sent the information to the state tax board, and they said, we're backlogged 18 to 24 months. So we will not hear your appeal for 18 to 24 months. And the assessor and the Board of Equalization, they know that, and so there's really no incentive for them to do anything with regard to these kind of appeals. And based on the research I did, I spent probably 30 hours researching this using the assessor's website to come up with values. And the most glaring thing was there's no two homes that are identical, but I found two houses built by the same builder, Sullivan & Rao, built the same year on the same size property with the exact same floor plan that are $40,000 to $50,000 valued less than mine by the assessor in farther West Pasco, which values are higher there, and it wasn't even considered. It's like we don't do it that way, even though I found an identical property. So it's just a little disconcerting about the process, the fact that an individual like myself can spend hours coming up with comparables. I came up with 11 comparables compared to their 3, because in the area where I live, it's difficult to find a house like mine that doesn't have a detached shop on it. So I did the legwork, I came up with the values for comparison purposes, came up with 10 to 15% less than what the appraiser has come up with a value in my home, and none of that has been considered whatsoever. So I'm trying to find out what my recourse is. I brought it to Steve. He said there's nothing he could do about it. I sent it to you a month and a half ago. You did nothing about it. I sent my email to Clint yesterday, and he asked me to come this morning and share my testimony. So that's why I'm here.
Thank
you for your time.
coming. Appreciate it.
Hey, I'm Russ Stetsky, Treasurer's Office. I'm here about a consent agenda item, which you guys now pulled to regular business item for the horse stall sales. I would like for our office to be involved in that conversation. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to just get passed without bringing anybody in. And I know you guys can't interact right now, but our Treasurer's Office is part of that auction out per that resolution. And so once that discussion is happening, would you guys let us have a say with this too?
Thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I would add one thing on the horse stall matter. We're actually required, we have not done a declaration of surplus, so we're required to hold a public hearing on that, I guess today, because we have properly noticed that. So, and the statute does require that the Treasurer's Office supervise the auction, so it would be appropriate to have the Treasurer's Office involved in that process. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, thank you. Mark Holyoke, CEO of Lord's Health, and just wanted to bring up some comments regarding our proposed sobering center, and to just make sure that some things are clear. This is something that Lord's Health is willing to do. Definitely not going to be profitable for us, but something that will hopefully help the community. And we did go ahead and discuss this at the advisory council a few weeks past, and there was definitely support there. In fact, a resounding, well, didn't we already support this back in September of 23? But wanted to really bring it to front that this is something that really just need to know if it's going to happen or not, so that we can focus our efforts and manpower wherever the need is in filling our mission of making communities healthier. And we're fine either way, but thank you for your time and thank you for your service to our community.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Is there anyone on the phone? No. So consent agenda items have been moved to the regular business. Franklin County social media resolution approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, the chair recognizes Commissioner Didier.
reading through this, we have discussed it already about, and it's has not been removed or changed, comments that communicate inaccurate information will be dealt with by the Franklin County Social Media Manager. Now, the Social Media Manager, reading through this, is our county administrator. And for me, that's concerning, because if we've got other offices that are posting something that the administrator doesn't agree with, he censors them, then we're limiting freedom of speech. And I'm still not happy with the social media policy. I don't know why we have went to this extreme to get this in place, but it really puts the county administrator so wholeheartedly and responsible and reviewing everybody's posts to see which ones are going to be allowed and which ones aren't. And that, to me, is concerning when you put that much power in one person's hands.
Chair recognizes Prosecutor Sean Sant.
It was my understanding this item was going to be pulled from the agenda because, as Commissioner Didier mentioned, I didn't see any of the changes that the board had discussed and brought up. It does have a signature spot for approved as to form. We do not approve this as to form because, as it is right now, I think it's problematic for the very issues that Commissioner Didier brought up. I think it's about the first three items that are listed in there where it would create somebody to have the responsibility of determining what's inaccurate information or otherwise, and that's just problematic. We simply do not have the resources to try to restrict speech. I think it needs to be very clear that this policy is simply referring to those within the control of the Commissioner's office. If the Commissioner's office adopts the policy, they're essentially, the only limitation and restriction is it would be on the employees under them that are tasked with the responsibility of posting online content, because essentially the official county policy, if it's reflective of Franklin County as a whole, that would fall upon the Commissioners. So the Commissioners would directly need to be responsible then for the content that's posted, and the Commissioners could determine what actions, if any, of what they want for its employees as far as what type of content they want online. It's also up to the Commissioners to decide, do you want to have comments on or off on particular topics, because as we discussed last time, once you allow comments, you can't restrict it. And I'm not suggesting one way or the other. I'm just saying that's one of the hurdles that you have when you try to adopt a policy that creates limits. Is we have no authority to limit what posts from the public. If the public posts something that we disagree with, well, you got to deal with it. It's almost like a continuing forum, and that also brings up some of the other issues and restrictions, because the Commissioners would then be creating a forum that is an extension of the board, and that's where there was a discussion of whether or not even board members could like comments, or whether or not that's a good idea, as some people could see it as the Commissioners weighing in on a particular item that might come before the board. So I just want to make sure that the board knew that this was not approved as the form yet. I think it's still being developed, and at least the form that I saw that was posted on the agenda for today, that did not incorporate the board's comments from the last hearing. So I think that would need to be fleshed out. And again, it really should be clear that the policy is focused solely on the Commissioners, what they would choose as far as the departments under the Commissioners. Independent electeds, we could create guidelines, and that's kind of the recommendation that we've seen throughout the state. Is there's kind of a guideline or a recommendation that, hey, we would ask that other departments would follow certain guidelines that basically says we're not restricting what you want to say, but please follow the guidelines to make sure that we are continuing to fill a public role of what social media can provide. So there are benefits to doing it. I think we just got to be careful for the very concerns that you raised, and we could flesh that out, and if that comes back to the board with those revisions at a later time, we could then approve that as to form. So, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, since legal has not okayed this, I think we should pull this from the agenda.
All in favor of pulling it from the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. That is pulled.
Booker auction.
Booker
contract.
auction moved.
So I believe proper would be to open a public hearing on this.
On the approval of Booker auction contract?
The sale of the horse stalls. We need to have that.
There needs to be a hearing to declare it surplus. We have not done that yet.
You want to do that today?
Yes, we'd have to do that prior to entering into the contract.
So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Briggs, are we altering the agenda then to where if we put an open public meeting on there, we are altering the agenda and therefore it would not be valid?
We could, no, you can alter the agenda on the fly, so I think it would be appropriate at this time to alter the agenda and turn this into a public hearing. My understanding, and sorry, I was on the criminal docket all day yesterday, so I didn't look at the agenda until this morning, but in speaking with Mr. Gonzalez about this, I know it's been noticed in the paper, and so we've been sort of continuing this surplus hearing weekly on the Booker auction, and so
Surplus items, the items to be auctioned have been surplused. So I think the only element left is actually to notice the actual auction itself, and we've been in conversation with Merle Booker quite a bit. So the intent is to have the auction on the 19th is the date that we've selected, or he thinks is the best date to have it, because the cleanup process is almost through, and then we just have to make sure that we time it correctly. Because it gets a little bit complicated with the graphic, how they put out the paper on Thursdays, I believe. So it's not, we can't put the digital component on. So anyway, long story short is that element is complete. The noticing process has to be done. And then however we execute the contract, because we've decided to use Booker, who's the most adept at this particular type of auction. So that,
Right.
you know,
Well,
that's a done deal.
I guess I'd take a step back and say, I don't know that we've selected Booker yet. I think that's what this is for.
Yeah, like, right,
And
exactly.
I also
Our
don't-
intent is to select Booker.
And I don't know that we've actually, I know we've talked about how we don't need the horse stalls anymore, obviously. I mean, that's pretty clear, but we haven't gone through the formal process of
Right.
actually adopting a resolution that declares it surplus, which, because we don't have our own property management policy at this time, is required by state law. So I think, you know, just to make sure that we're doing this in compliance with that statute, we need to hold a public hearing, which is just a fancy way of saying the public gets to weigh in on it. Like,
Right.
they can come up and say, we want to keep the horse stalls, we don't, et cetera. And there can be back and forth dialogue, and then, you know, the board makes a decision to declare it surplus. At that point, it could either adopt the resolution or not. I know we have a proposal here from Booker to provide that. The statute does require that the treasurer oversee the auction. It supervise, I think is the word it uses. So the treasurer doesn't necessarily need to conduct the auction, although they could. But I think in speaking with Booker, and I don't want to speak for the treasurer's office here, but I think they've worked with the treasurer's office in the past. Is that?
Yeah, we work with all the auctions around.
So they could work in tandem, in other words, to do the auction together. But that would be the other aspect of this, is once it's declared surplus, we could select Booker to conduct the auction. Because this is a services contract, we don't need to go through a formal RFP process.
But, Mr. Briggs, just to be clear, we need to have a public hearing, an open
Correct.
public, so we need to open up a public hearing right
Right.
now and let the public have it, but since, was it advertised to be a public hearing today?
My understanding is that we noticed in the graphic, right, to declare it surplus.
This is to declare it surplus, but we have never noticed a public hearing for this particular topic.
I guess I haven't read the advertisement.
Because Teresa, we haven't advertised, yeah. So we haven't, and my understanding is we have,
The first time, it was a draft of the items that we had, but there was no one.
so my understanding was that it went out to the graphic, according to the GM at the Hapo Center, that HWL had worked with our office to get that notice, and that you had sent that to the graphic. Is that not true? So you haven't received anything from them? Okay. And that was not my understanding in conversation with HWL.
Okay, so the statute does require that we post it in the newspaper, I guess the graphic, which I don't read, so I wasn't aware of that, but we need to post it for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the hearing to declare it surplus, which apparently we haven't done, so. we
And with
can't-
Booker's needing time to advertise,
I understand that.
we're not going to get a very good turnout and monies out of this if they don't have adequate time to advertise. And that's the whole thing, was trying to get this done today. And if we haven't properly noticed an open public hearing and we're 2 weeks out, that's going to put them right up against their sale when they want to sell it.
Right.
And Chair, if I may, and I will say respectfully, Commissioner, I mean, I've been fielding calls, the word is out, and we're going to get quite a bit of money for that, regardless of when the date of that is. So, I mean, we just need to get the mechanics of it done. So I'm almost certain we'll get quite a bit of money for that auction,
That's concerning.
regardless of when it is.
It's concerning to me that it's only less than 4 weeks away at this point if it was approved today, so.
And I guess that's my concern as well. If there's any issue about the notice and opportunity, I would hate to have someone, potential buyer, come back in later and say, hey, wait a minute, this wasn't noticed right. I wanted an opportunity to be able to bid. as problematic as that can be for getting this auction, and I know with Booker, sometimes they have limited dates to be able to facilitate that, but I think that would be the most appropriate action, is that we just continue this so that the public here has proper notice, and we coordinate with Booker, the treasurer's office, make sure that, is there another date that would be suitable for this, so that we could facilitate it with the right proper notice. So we basically try to eliminate any potential issues, especially even though we might be able to technically go ahead forward with the hearing today. It sounds like there was a problem with the notice being out there the 2 weeks prior. So I just want to make sure that we've done that. And I think the coordination between the auction house as well as the treasurer's office would be helpful, just to have a date, because I agree with you. I think you have to they have to have, in order to do their work, they need to be able to know for certain, hey, this is good. And I think it would be improper for them to start posting notice, even though we could go back and do a hearing. I think that's problematic, because if they start posting that, hey, we're going to be having this auction, but wait, the county hasn't even made that decision yet. We haven't had that public hearing, and it kind of defeats the purpose of why have a public hearing if it's already been kind of set in stone, and they're taking actions to say, hey, we're moving forward because we anticipate that's going to be the ultimate decision. But I think, as this board knows, when the purpose of having a public hearing is being able to have the public's input prior to the final decision being made. So
Yep.
it does cause some problems. I would rather make sure we do this right. I don't see a disadvantage of being able to coordinate that, and if it means we have to ultimately change that date to accommodate the timelines, I think that's just what we have to do to make sure we do it right. So that'd be my recommendation. Thank you.
So your recommendation is to have an open hearing today?
No, it would be
have to
proper
advertise.
notice it on the agenda, because it sounds like, and I didn't see that either. I didn't see that notice was put out for the specific date. So that would be, I think, the essential part, is to declare the property surplus, make sure that we've got that notice requirement in there. I think it's the 2 weeks prior to it. Make sure we put it on the agenda, because I agree, even though it could have been noticed, and the board does have the flexibility to add agenda items, I think when we're adding an item that is a public hearing, the best practice would be to make sure that was published in the agenda, so the public has as much notice as possible, so that they could come in and participate.
Yeah, and Chair, if I may, I do want to put on the record, HWL is the one that is handling the auction. The Commissioner's office is helping facilitate the noticing. So I'll talk to the general manager of HWL, and also Wes Harris, to see how that got miscommunicated to us, or because I know they went through a tremendous list of items that they've given to us in some capacity. So we'll figure it out. It was my understanding that they had properly noticed that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we remove the approval of the Booker auction contract from the Hapo Center horse stall auction to June 5th, after we announce the open public hearing for 2 weeks.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Moving on to,
Yeah, Russ wants to speak.
oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry. I just want clarity on what role you guys expect the treasurer's office to be involved, because the way the RCW, or the way the resolution reads today, it said Franklin County Treasurer shall coordinate with Booker and the county administrator and supervise the auction as required by RCW. And there's two pieces at play here. There's historically how things have been done in the county as far as surplus auction goes. We've been involved with tax title properties. We have not been involved with surplus whatsoever as far as the treasurer's office goes. The RCW does state that the treasurer's office shall oversee it, or appoint a designee or person appointed by the board. If the treasurer's office is the office that you guys want to oversee the auction or supervise the auction, there is enough in there in RCWs where you guys can assign us to do that. And, we're not going to say that it hasn't been done that way, so we're not going to do it that way. There's a good chance that things have been done incorrectly. I don't know that. But if we're going to be the ones that do the auction, we would have to really be the ones that do all the noticing and be informed of what is it we're selling and what needs to be sold and all that. Because it seems like right now we're kind of being thrown in the middle of this. This is the first time I've came across this part when I opened the agenda this morning saying, hey, the treasurer's office is now involved. Now, we've all heard about the horse stalls, hearsay, but at no point were we ever directly involved in any of this. I don't even know what there is to be sold. And Josie wasn't able to be here this morning, so I'm here on her behalf. But yeah, we know there's horse stalls. We don't know how many of them, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. And so we're overseeing that auction. We need a little bit more depth on what needs to be done, what's there, what part of it is our involvement. And then if we're involved in it, then we're doing the whole process. We're doing the posting, we're doing the noticing, we're doing the 2 weeks before the auction happens. Because then if we're involved, we're liable to make sure that the proper steps are taken. It just seems the way it is right now, it's kind of, there's already a preset auction, preset date, preset everything, and by the way the treasurers is involved. And so my thing is we're going to need more clarity on what exactly you guys want us to do. And if we need to do the whole thing, then so be it. But we just need to know that. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, so before you leave, Russ, you guys were involved in the Wilson House, right?
No.
You were not?
So, but it was mostly handled through the administrator's office. So the treasurer's office is involved in all auctions from the revenue standpoint, because no matter what, when the money comes in, we safeguard them funds, and so we set up the banking and stuff. But like the Wilson House, it went through the board to pick the auctioneer and do all that. And it was, most of it was handled through the board. And actually, before this meeting, I pulled up just surplus history for the past, whatever comes up on the archives, just to see if I'm missing something. I didn't see a single one written this way, where the treasurer's office is directly involved through surplus. It's either been handled through county administrator's office or a public works or sheriff's office, depending on what surplus is. Some through IS. Pretty much, whoever's in charge of whatever the surplus is. But again, the RCW does state the county treasurer does supervise it, so I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we don't do it. There's a good argument there that it should go through our office, and I don't oppose that work. It's just we need to know about it, and we need to know exactly what's expected of our office. We can't just, on our own accord, go sell surplus items without the board, A, giving us that jurisdiction, saying, hey, this is what surplus is, and B, this is what needs to be sold in. And then from there, we could, set a timeline and a date and all that. Because I could tell you right now, June 19 is already a conflicting date for us. That's when WASAC is happening. But besides that, even to go through all the proper channels to make sure we posted it correctly, to make sure that everything was met according to our CW. If we're going to do it, we need to make sure all that is handled correctly.
Any further questions? I think we need to have a consensus on who we want to orchestrate the sale and what the treasurer's involvement should be.
If the RCW lays out the process, I don't know that we have a say in that. Am I accurate in that?
Yes, it uses the word supervise. So I think supervise could mean that you could work through a private party to do the auction, as long as the treasurer supervises it, whatever that means. I mean, so I think that and it may be premature to decide that if we haven't declared it surplus yet. I think the probably course of action would be to hold the hearing, declare it surplus, and then decide. You're kind of putting the cart before the horse if we decide who's selling it and it's not surplus yet. So I would think we would.
So, Mr. Chair, how about we put this on a workshop item and ask the administrator, the treasurer's office, and the PA's office to coordinate and present at a workshop the process as they feel would be appropriate.
And which workshop date would you want that on?
Is next week, is that enough time?
Mr. Chairman, I think the important thing now, if we're going to continue on with this date for Booker auction, we need to get this notice out today.
I don't believe that date is adequate. If we put it in the paper, I don't know what day they publish, but it has to be published for 2 weeks.
Yes.
So if
That'll put
they
us at
publish
June
on
5th.
Monday, that means they don't publish till next Monday. That means it's 2 weeks to publish before we have a public hearing, which would then, there's no way for that date to be adequate for this auction.
We're going to need to get a hold of Booker auction then and tell them that that date's not going to work for their auction.
So I would encourage 3 offices here in the courthouse, reach out and coordinate with and propose a process wherewith we can do this appropriately.
Pardon me? Yes, Chair recognizes the clerk.
Thank you. So if we do have the surplus list by Monday, then the first publication and the graphic is going to be May 30th and June 6th. That will comply with, the 2-week notices. But we have to have the surplus list, whatever day, today, Thursday, Friday, or Monday. And then I can start writing up the Word document for the graphic. Published on May 30th and June 6th.
Mr. Gonzalez, will we have a surplus list that meets those dates?
Chair, permission to call Joel Morgan from HWL, because again, my understanding that we have a surplus list that's been provided to us already. That's what he's telling me.
Okay.
So let me see if I can get a hold of him, just because I
I
think.
do believe that's accurate, what you're saying.
Yes, sir, thank you. And
The pretty significant list that's attached to our agenda items today.
yeah, I think he can lend some clarification just on timing and, sure.
My understanding is.
Joel, I'm going to punch you into our meeting because we just have a few questions on the surplus list and what's out there and sort of the timing of the noticing. So I'm going to put you on speakerphone with your permission and put you on the microphone. No, and that's okay. No, that's okay. Just, we just need some clarification. We don't need the actual list of everything. So, all right, I'm going to punch you in here. Joel, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Joel, what have you guys done so far as far as gathering what is actually out there? So has that all been done in terms, I know obviously the horse stalls, but my understanding there was some peripheral things that were also that are going to be a part of the auction?
That is correct. Outside of the horse stalls, there's also some parking stops that are out there. There is a flatbed trailer. There's also a small water wagon. There's also some components for dasher boards for
Gotcha.
this ice hockey arena. And then there's some miscellaneous items like trash cans, and there's some other signage out there, and then there's glass that goes with the dasher boards.
So we do have
Okay.
it is accurate to say that we can have a complete list.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
And don't forget the cattle panels.
And the cattle panels as well. And obviously, you've sent all that
Yeah.
information to us, and my understanding was you were working with the Commissioner's Office and Teresa, so you guys have been in pretty good conversation, right?
Yeah, there's also the panels of various sizes, and there's also some bow gates, and there's also a couple chutes out there also.
And Joel, my understanding was you guys had noticed it. Was that your understanding, or what was your understanding of that process? Because if I misunderstood that, I apologize.
We did an inventory. I can't remember the date off the top of my head. And then we sent that to you and Teresa. And my understanding that those items were noticed. That was my understanding.
Okay. Any commissioners, any questions that you may have for Joel or Teresa?
Just a statement, Joel. We got to have 2-week notice for an open public hearing on surplus, so we can't finalize this today with Booker Auction Company until that has been done. So we're 2 weeks out from this open public meeting that we could get this in the proper order to have the sale.
Okay. So obviously, and that's on us to get it noticed correctly, Joel. And I guess my only other question would be, are there any other items out there that you think that we need to add to this list, or are we good? You've exhausted everything?
Well, I'd like to confirm either with you, Mike, on if there's anything else that we can add to the list.
Okay. All right, wonderful. Anything else, Jeff, that you might have for,
No, that's it. I think the notice just has to describe with particularity the property that we're desiring to sell, so we can have the hearing on it.
And Mr. Chairman, Joel, we need the treasurer's office involved in this. By statute, they need to be involved. We need them at the table too, to make sure this is properly done.
certainly so, and I do want to let the treasurer's office know that it was not the commissioner's office intent to exclude them. I just learned that yesterday that they needed to be a part of the process. So we welcome all the help we can get for this particular auction because, so I'll definitely work with your office. And
We didn't take it that way.
no, and I hope you got.
What we need to do, what's expected of us.
And I didn't think so, but I just wanted to put it on the record that certainly was not our intent. And
From
we
a
want- we-
noticing standpoint, it appears that we need to have any information that we need in the graphic on Monday for it to publish on Thursday. So we would need all of our content prepared and submitted by this coming Monday for it to then published the following Thursday.
No, the notice is for the public hearing. Yeah, so the public knows about it.
Joel, I'll let you go, buddy. I didn't want to keep you on the phone here. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your help.
No problem. Thanks. My pleasure.
Thanks.
So I believe I heard Mr. Stover say that Monday is a holiday. It's Memorial Day, but I think the graphic will take it then on Tuesday.
No, you gotta do it before.
So we're gonna have to do it Friday. Okay. We need to do it by Friday.
All right, so moving on to presentation by Craig Ergman, procurement of one Caterpillar motor grader.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Before the board is the replacement of the leased 2019 Caterpillar 140 motor grader with a new leased Caterpillar 150 motor grader. On November 29th, 2023, the Board of Commissioners approved and adopted through Resolution 2023-318 the 2024 Annual Construction Program and Major Equipment Purchases for the Public Works Department. The major equipment list states the projected annual equipment needs for 2024. Public Works has determined that Western States CAT of Pasco, Washington, utilizing a lease purchase agreement between Franklin County and Summit National Bank, is in the best interest of the county. And when we are done at the end of this lease agreement, we will return the equipment to Western States CAT. Is there any questions that I can answer?
So when you return it, it will be returned here locally.
Yes.
Okay. I just remember from last time there was.
I know that it's never in actuality ever worked that way, but we understand that, and the language is in there now to return it to the nearest dealership, which in this case is our local dealer.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions?
Mr. Chair, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0116 as presented.
I second.
There's been a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Administrator updates. Mr. Gonzalez.
Chair, I just want the public to know next Wednesday's meeting, it will be at the HAPO Center because there's an air conditioning that's going to be installed in here. I was told, I think starting Tuesday and Wednesday. So we'll have it at the HAPO Center in the Snake River Room, same time, 9 a.m. But we'll have microphones and all that good stuff there, and the public is welcome. But it's one of those things because of the complexity of bringing the unit in. They have to get a crane, and that crane gets rented only at certain times, and we couldn't get it on a different date. It's rented months in advance, so that's one of the reasons that it'll have to be at the HAPO Center. But we'll get that properly noticed and then get it out to the public with press releases and on our social media platforms as well. Some other things that have been going on, working with the city of Pasco and Larry Leisure and HWL, working on the master plan, and the intent is to have a special meeting between the city and the county on June 4th and around 6 o'clock. So we'll be inviting the public to that as well. This will be the kickoff to the master plan for the HAPO Center with both the city council and our board. An opportunity for us to ask questions of each other and really start that visioning process and hopefully move that project forward. I've been working with the Sheriff's Office. Jason Valentine's been working with Captain Brunt quite a bit on the E911 presentation. That will be a workshop next Wednesday. So that's something that Jason's been working on really hard. As well as the HVAC RFP for the HAPO Center. The questions have been answered, so HWL just fielding questions for various folks that have put something in for that RFP. Then OPD legislator meeting, that's something we're also working on to shepherd sometime next month and get everybody together and keep that particular issue in the forefront. That's all I've got.
Thank you. Just for clarification, the June 4th meeting with the city of Pasco, what's the location?
That will also be at the HAPO Center. We felt like that was the proper place to have that. So I'll get all the information out to the commission and the public, and that's something we talked with Larry Leisure about and the city manager yesterday about the best date and place to hold that.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Baumann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's been a busy last week for me. After the night meeting last Wednesday night, my wife traveled with me, and we traveled to Union, Washington for the Thursday morning WASAC Legislative Steering Committee meeting for Thursday and Friday, and appreciated the process that we went through there. There was a new voting process that was implemented that gave a single vote to counties on some items, and it gave a weighted vote on other items. And a lot of efforts happened there, and with that, some of the things that found its way onto the priority list was funding for the Office of Public Defense, funding for roads and infrastructure, and behavioral health contract standards. And a lot of hard work happened there. Long days. Had a Friday afternoon meeting here in this room with a number of different departments within the courthouse, and then over the last week have fielded a great number of calls and emails. That's my report.
Thank you. Commissioner Didier.
Last week consisted of the Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Coalition Board meeting. Right as soon as that ended, I had a Hanford community meeting, and then the Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Stakeholder meeting was after that. I wanted to mention I talked to David about his property tax issue. Also, Capital Press, very concerning article here about plans move ahead despite USDA concerns. The USDA is opposed to this, but the federal environmental regulators are banning Zuram, which is a fungicide for orchardists. It can be very detrimental to the production of good orchard products without this fungicide, and they're saying that the other ones that could probably take its place are going to come up short because there isn't enough around. On the back of the Capital Press is the hay report, and I've been warning our assessor about this, but this is where the hay prices are at. It says for premium hay is $150, and I've told him before the break-even's $180, so farmers are going to be going backwards here as far as profit, and it's going to make it very tough for them to make the property tax as well as their increase in power and the water assessment. Everything is going up, and if you've been to the grocery store, the farmers aren't receiving that kind of money. all the middlemen. And we're going to see less and less quality because the small farmers are going to get squeezed out. The big farmers are going to come in, and your quality of food is going to go down. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. So this morning I had the Visit Tri-Cities meeting. Good news out of that meeting is that visitor spending is up 35 million over 2022. They are working very hard to attract tourism here. The RFP is now open for the lighting of the cable bridge. They have the master plan for the Toyota Center in that area. That will increase the indoor space for sports from 20,000 square feet to 60,000 square feet. So it's exciting that they have all these good improvements coming, because what it will do is, instead of having to travel out of town to attend your children's sports or family member sports, like saying having to go to Spokane or Seattle, we can hold those here in Tri-Cities with this new facility. I had the budget review meeting. It was canceled. Also, the Pasco Chamber was canceled and has moved to next week. I had a conversation with the Department of Commerce over the Oberding Underwood plan that we had approved here about a month or so ago. They are going to appeal it. So just want to make sure that we're all aware of that.
Who's appealing it?
The Department of Commerce. So had the WASAC meeting on Monday, and last week also had the Disability Board meeting. And that concludes my updates. So moving on to administrative office business.
Chair, the only thing I wanted to discuss was the possibility of revisiting the Lord's Sobering Center for either a workshop or to get some direction on, do we want to support this endeavor for the Sobering Center? The issue really is, I had an extensive conversation with Benton County. For them, they're willing to help us fund the Sobering Center if it can hit the timelines of the 6 months. So perhaps we talk about it with a contingency on the timeline. I've talked to Nellie. I've talked to Mark. I've talked to Mauricio extensively about hitting those timelines. They believe they can get very close. They could hit it or get very close. So the question really becomes, do we want to make that commitment, and what does that look like? And would the proper discussion be right now, or because they're here, or do we want to wait for another workshop and perhaps invite Benton to get their input on it? Because that's really been my takeaway from talking to Matt Rasmussen over there. It's not an issue of not wanting to support it. It's really an issue of timing. And then the intent is for KGH and that facility to open in 18 months, basically a few years. So the real concern amongst even the Health Advisory Board is that you're going to get duplication of services, and if this is up and running and KGH is up and running, can those coexist? So certainly a lot of things to think about, but the need is there. It's really all about timing. So I'll kind of leave it at that and take your direction, Chair.
I mean, I don't know if the board feels comfortable talking about it right now, or it would be best to put it on the agenda for next week. I know we just discussed this, was it last week or the week before?
Yes, sir.
I know that there are concerns about what the costs are, and is Benton County willing to pay half the cost, or?
What was expressed to me, Chair, was they're not willing to put in any infrastructure costs, but operational costs, they would split that with us, or however that wound up looking. Their major concern was just the timing. If it could take 6 months, they're in. But if it went beyond that, they have serious concerns about duplication of services. So, and that was really the takeaway that I got from my conversation from Matt Rasmussen. conversations with the Benton Franklin Health Advisory Board, same concerns. It was timing, and we've talked with some constituents that are highly involved in the process. I think Chris Jansen, I've had some really good conversations with him, and he came up with some really good ideas. That, maybe we allocate a certain amount of those fundings, let's say $5 million from Franklin, that we know we're putting into KGH, and then maybe take the rest for opportunities to give to entities like Lords. That was one idea that's being thrown around right now. So, and I ran that by Matt as well, and he welcomed any money we'd be willing to give, and it's not something that we have to do, was what Matt said, which I was surprised. But he was like, hey, if you can promise us $5 million, we would absolutely love that. So we know that can be part of the funding equation, and then we can certainly help you guys fund Lords. So a lot of things on the table.
Well, it's my understanding that the Recovery Center needs the $5 million to be committed. Otherwise, it's going to stop production or progress on the building. So I think Chris Jensen had a great idea as far as allocating that $5 million to them so that it does not slow down the process, which is a much needed facility, and then take a look at the extra funds, I guess you would say. So we're what, a little over $6 million?
Yeah, we're right around $7 million.
$7 million.
So the fund continues to grow. So there's
Sure.
there's a lot in there, and I think we've talked a little bit about it. $5 million. I mean, it'd be great to really allocate that for KGH, and Matt certainly thought that was a good idea from Benton County. For us to commit to that if we could, or we're willing.
Yeah, it was my understanding if we didn't, then it's going to stop.
And
production.
that part I didn't hear. I'll have to clarify from Matt, because leaving that conversation, it sounded like there were enough funds to build, that they had committed to the funding part of it. But let me call Benton back today and see where they're at. If they but still, giving an additional $5 million, because there's going to be cost overruns, and there's going to be things that come up. And
Well, I think it was just the $5 million was to ensure that they could continue on with the
Yeah.
building.
Chair, let me find out for sure, and I'll get the facts on that.
And my other my other question of concern would be, my recollection was that Lords was seeking $700,000, and then I hear other numbers, so I'm not sure if those numbers are accurate.
So we had proposed different options.
The mic.
Please come up to the mic. Thank you.
So we proposed different options depending on the staffing levels that we were looking at to make it safe. So Mike has that proposal with the different options.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should put it on next week's agenda, and that way we have a clear understanding and can move forward. Because we definitely we don't want to slow the process down. But thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So I feel like that it is important that we discuss this, and I would ask that we keep hearing about the plan and that they need $5 million, but I don't know what the plan is. I've been working diligently to try to understand, and there's been a lot of valid things and opinions said, but for us to allocate funds without knowing what the plan is, I think is improper. Another thing that we're not taking into account is it's been more than 2 years since our community said, yes, we believe we need to do something, and for 2 years now, we still have not taken any action. And the very best case scenario is the Columbia Center Valley for Recovery. The very best case scenario is 18 months. Far more likely that it's 30 months. That's 2.5 more years. So for our community to ask us to do something and then we not take action, and I shouldn't say take action, that we did not deliver anything for 4.5 plus years, I don't find is an acceptable answer. And we have $7 million approximately in the account today for those services, and over the next 2.5 years, the account balance that we have today will approximately double in that same amount of time. I believe we need to take action, and we need to take action quickly as we can. Lords has said that it would take them approximately 6 months to be able to start providing these services, and I think every day we wait is a day too long. I believe we need to do this as quickly as we can, and that needs to come, of course, with good information, and would ask that we have those that come next week to provide that information would have a clear information and complete, so that we can have an understanding of what the plan is that I'm not aware of today. I know lots of pieces of it, but to say that we need to allocate $5 million in funds today so that they can work on a project that they have already collected well north of $20 million on, I don't have any understanding of that. And I'm somebody that works in building a lot, and to say we need to allocate those funds today is, I don't even understand that. Thank you.
Well, obviously, we need to have more discussion on this. My understanding is the $5 million is just to continue keeping the project going forward. And if the longer we wait, the more that will slow the process down. So obviously, we need to have more discussion on it. 'Cause it sounds like to me that, from what I understand, KGH would be open approximately about 6 months after Lord's Sobering Center would be open. So those are some key elements that we need to find
Yeah, we
better
need
clarification
answers
on that. So,
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, the chair recognizes.
So I'm in favor of this sobering center, but I'm not in favor of the location that it's proposed to be at, which is right across the street, Margaret Street, right here across from the courthouse. We've had issues already about people in the courthouse that we feel unsafe about. I've been told that they feel unsafe about, and there's been a window put into the commissioner's office for that reason, and the doors are closed all the time. For the life of me, I've asked Lords to please find another location, because you can't keep these people at this facility. If they want to leave, they can leave. We have people driving in the back parking lot here, and that gate opens all the time. They could walk right into this courthouse without entry through our guard shack. I think this is not the location for the sobering center, is right across from our courthouse. I think we need to find a new location that is further away from the courthouse and more adequate for our security, is my only concern.
All right. Thank you. So can we orchestrate this onto the agenda next week?
Yes, sir. We'll
All
get
right.
it on.
Thank you. Any other administrative office business?
No, sir.
All right. We'll open it back up to public comment. If there's anyone in the room for public comment, please come forward, state your name, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
LaWanda Hatch, Franklin County, just continuing the comment that I made before. So as well as the assessor and assistant on this committee that wants to censure me, there's an ex-school board chair who forced face masks on children, and not only children, their parents, at a school board meeting, and went around the room. Not only did they have to have their masks on, one by one made them put it over their nose, because they wanted to be assured that they knew that their freedoms come from government and not from God. He also kicked a woman out of the room because she had a medical release not to wear a face mask. There's also a police officer who told and encouraged a woman in 2020 that it was legal for her to run and file for a PCO in a precinct of which she does not live, causing her to unwittingly commit voter fraud because she believed, since he had once been a chair, he knew what he was talking about. He did know what he was talking about, and it took us 2 years to find that out, and I have a witness, her and another witness, as well as the Secretary of State filings to prove that. Then Mr. Baumann, who has texted people asking them to send my private emails and text messages to them for doing my job at the state convention. He yelled at me there nonsensically in front of 1,800 people and in an attempt to intimidate me. And he has a low information woman, a friend of his who does not go to the meetings, hasn't been to our meetings in years, on social media, slandering me, saying I'm lying, saying that I'm attacking Mr. Bauman for doing my due diligence as a PCO and asking questions, making motions, and bringing up bylaw changes, because Mr. Bauman's evidently has that much of a fragile ego that no one can challenge him. And now I'm considering my options because I feel like I am being harassed by Mr. Bauman. I don't know if I can file with Human Resources. Someone said they weren't sure about that, or what my next options are. But he should note that I keep all my receipts. I have evidence of these things, and I will be contacting someone, because I am a human being, and if you're going to treat me this way, you're going to treat others. And you're supposed to be representing the people, and you are supposed to be working for the PCOs. We don't work for you. And if you want to censure me, bring it on. I welcome it. I relish it. And I can tell you, I know there's people that would buy tickets to it.
All right, thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Do we have anyone on the phone? Executive session. I'm going to call for executive session under RCW Code 42.30.1101, Section F. And I would ask that legal attend and the Board of Commissioners.
We'll also need one under 4230.110.1I. Potential litigation.
So there will be
Time?
There's a caveat, I believe. Is this a complaint against a public employee?
Yeah.
So, under 1F, if the officer or employee wants to have an open meeting, they can. So I guess we can discuss that more in the session and figure out.
How long are you asking for yours to be, and who are you asking to be in that meeting?
The board, myself, Mr. Stovern, and Mr. Sant, so from the prosecutor's office, we would exclude everyone, including IS and the...
Legal and the board is all that you would like there.
I think that's on both of them, the one
Yeah.
you called it, too.
I actually have two topics which fall under the same category of RCW Code 42.30.1101, Section
We're
F.
probably going to need some time. I'd say maybe, what do you think, 45 minutes, half hour?
We can start with a half hour.
We can start with half hour, okay.
And Do we have to announce the extension of 30 minutes on the microphone?
Put that out, yeah, put it on the record, same RCW. Shut the door again? Not yet, not yet. Okay. We're getting a queue.
Reese has got his dialed up here yet.
We've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. We are going to go back into executive session under RCW Code 42.30.110, 1 Section F, for approximately for 30 minutes. Thank you. So we've come out of an executive session. The time is 10:13. No decisions being made. Is there any other further business for the good of the county?
No.
Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. And there is no workshop today.